If you're reading this, it's already too late. I know that sounds like the kind of thing you hear in a cheap horror movie, but trust me, some warnings are only understood when it's far, far too late to do anything about them. You think you know Halloween? Think again. The stories you've heard, the urban legends you've whispered at midnight, the costumes and candy and laughter, they're just the surface. Underneath, there's something else. Something that waits for the one night a year when the world pretends not to believe in monsters. I used to love Halloween. The smell of pumpkin guts on my hands, the crinkle of candy wrappers, the way the air felt electric with possibility. I remember running through the streets with my friends, our faces painted, our voices echoing off the houses. We thought we were invincible, hidden behind our masks. But not every mask comes off at midnight. Some things follow you home. Some things never leave. Tonight, I'm going to share 5 stories with you. 5 true Halloween horrors that I've collected over the years, some from people like you, who thought they were just having fun, and some from places I wish I'd never gone. One of these stories was never meant to be shared. But tonight, I'm breaking the rules. Maybe you'll recognize a detail, a street name, a voice in the dark. Maybe you'll realize you've seen something you shouldn't have. That's the risk you take when you listen to stories like these. If you've been here before, you know I don't pull punches. You've sent me your theories, your own encounters, your warnings. Some of you think you've figured out the pattern. But trust me, there are secrets even I'm afraid to say out loud. So, which story will haunt you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you think you're safe, if you think you know how this night ends, let's start with the first story, one that still keeps me up at night. He started as a joke. It ended with a secret I can never tell. Halloween in my neighborhood was always a big deal. My mom would string orange lights across the porch, my dad would carve a lopsided jack-o'-lantern, and I'd spend hours perfecting my costume. That year, I was 16, old enough to feel embarrassed about trick-or-treating, but not old enough to resist the pull of free candy and the thrill of the night. My little sister, Emma, was a witch, complete with a crooked hat and a broom she kept tripping over. We were supposed to take her around the block, but I'd already made plans to meet up with my friends later, once the little kids were done. The night started out normal. Kids in costumes darted up and down the street, their laughter echoing through the crisp air. Parents stood in clusters, coffee mugs in hand, pretending not to be spooked by the decorations. I handed out candy while Emma danced around the living room, practicing her cackle. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. I grabbed the bowl of candy and opened the door, expecting a group of kids. Instead, there was just one figure standing on the porch. They were small, maybe the size of a 10-year-old, but I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. They wore a plain, white mask. No features, no expression. Just 2 black holes for eyes and a slit for a mouth. The rest of the costume was a black hoodie and jeans. No bag for candy. No parents in sight. Trick or treat, I said, trying to sound cheerful. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me through the mask. Emma peeked around my legs. "Cool mask," she whispered, but even she sounded uncertain. I held out the bowl. "Take whatever you want." The masked kid reached out, slowly, and took a single piece of candy, a mini Snickers. Then they turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows at the end of the driveway. I shrugged it off. There's always one kid who takes Halloween a little too seriously. But 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Same mask, same silent stare. "Didn't I just see you?" I asked, forcing a laugh. No answer, just that blank, white face. This time, they took a piece of candy and dropped it back into the bowl. I looked down, my own reflection warped in the shiny wrapper. When I looked up, the kid was gone. "Who was that?" Emma asked, her voice small. "Probably just someone from school messing around," I said, but I didn't believe it. The third time, my dad answered the door. I watched from the hallway as he tried to joke with the kid, but got nothing in return. The mask just stared. My dad's smile faded. He closed the door a little too quickly. "Creepy," he muttered, locking the deadbolt. After that, the night started to feel wrong. The laughter outside seemed forced, the shadows deeper. I kept glancing out the window, half expecting to see that mask staring back at me. At 9, my friends texted. They were heading to the park for a bonfire. I told my parents I was leaving, promised to be back by midnight. Emma clung to my arm as I put on my jacket. "Don't go," she whispered. "The mask is still out there." I ruffled her hair. "It's just a kid, Em. Nothing to worry about." But as I walked down the driveway, I saw the mask again standing under the streetlight, perfectly still, watching me. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend I wasn't scared. But every time I looked over my shoulder, I saw that white face, just out of reach, just close enough to make my skin crawl. At the park, my friends laughed at my story. "Probably some loser from the next street over," Mark said, tossing a marshmallow into the fire. "Or maybe it's Emma trying to freak you out." But when I got home, the house was dark, too quiet. My parents were asleep, but Emma's door was open. She was sitting on her bed, knees pulled to her chest. "He was here," she whispered. "He came to my window. He said my name." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Emma, you're dreaming. Go back to sleep." But I knew she wasn't lying. I could see it in her eyes. The next morning, I found the mask on our porch, just sitting there, as if waiting for me. I picked it up, half expecting it to be warm, but it was ice cold. Inside, there was a folded piece of paper. My name was written on it, in handwriting I didn't recognize. I never told anyone what the note said. I never found out who wore the mask, or how they knew things about me that I'd never told a soul. But sometimes, late at night, I see that blank face in my dreams, and I wonder if the mask is still out there, waiting for someone else to put it on. But that wasn't the only Halloween that went wrong. I should have ignored the invitation. But curiosity is a curse, and on Halloween, it's practically a death sentence. College campuses are weird places on Halloween. There's this electric, feverish energy. Everyone's either trying too hard or not at all, and the line between fun and reckless gets blurry fast. My school was no different. Every year, there were rumors about secret parties. The kind you only heard about if you knew the right people or were in the right place at the right time. Most of them were just hype, but there was one legend that always came up: the Phantom Party. Supposedly, every few years, someone would get a mysterious invite-no-return address, no sender, just a time and a place. The story said if you found the party, you'd never come back the same. Some people said it was a cult, others said it was a prank, but everyone agreed on one thing: you didn't go looking for the Phantom Party. It found you. I never believed any of it. Until last Halloween. It was a Thursday, and I was buried in midterms, half asleep at my desk when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was simple: you're invited. 11:30 p.m., the old science building. Come alone. Costumes required. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember if I'd signed up for some mailing list or RSVP'd to a party I'd forgotten. But the old science building had been closed for years, condemned, supposedly haunted, the kind of place you only went on a dare. I showed the text to my roommate, Jess. "Dude, that's sketchy as hell," she said, laughing. "You going?" I shrugged. "Maybe. I mean, what's the worst that could happen?" She rolled her eyes. Famous last words. I tried to forget about it, but the idea gnawed at me all day. By the time the sun set, I'd convinced myself it was just a prank. But at 11:15, I found myself digging through my closet for a costume. I settled on a cheap vampire cape and some fake blood, then headed out into the night. The campus was alive, music thumping from dorm windows, people in costumes stumbling across the quad, laughter echoing in the dark. But as I got closer to the old science building, everything got quieter. The lights faded, the air felt colder. By the time I reached the building, I was alone. Music drifted out, old, scratchy jazz, the kind you'd hear in a haunted house. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was filled with people in costumes, but something was off. Their faces were hidden behind elaborate masks, too detailed, too lifelike. No one spoke. They just swayed to the music, moving in slow, dreamlike circles. I tried to catch someone's eye, but every time I looked at a mask, it seemed to shift, the features melting and reforming. I pulled out my phone to text Jess, but there was no signal. I tried to leave, but the door was gone, just a blank wall where I'd entered. "Welcome," a voice whispered behind me. I spun around. A woman in a porcelain mask stood inches from my face. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too sharp. Thanks," I stammered. "Is this the Phantom Party?" She laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "Names don't matter here, only memories." I tried to back away, but the crowd pressed in, their masks turning toward me in unison. "Stay," someone else whispered. "It's almost midnight." I don't remember much after that. The music got louder, the lights flickered, and the room spun. I remember voices soft, urgent, pleading. I remember hands on my shoulders, cold and heavy. I remember someone leaning in close, their mask inches from my ear. "Don't forget," they whispered, "or you'll have to come back." The next thing I knew, I was waking up in my own bed. My phone was dead, my costume was gone, and my head throbbed like I'd been hit by a truck. I stumbled to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, trying to piece together what had happened. That's when I saw a party favor on my nightstand. A mask identical to the ones from the party. Porcelain, cold to the touch, with my name carved into the inside. I never told anyone what happened that night. I tried to throw the mask away, but it always comes back. Sometimes, when I'm walking across campus late at night, I catch a glimpse of someone wearing a mask just like it, watching me from the shadows. Some say if you find the party, you never come back the same. I believe them now. If you think that's strange, wait until you hear what happened in the woods. We thought the scariest thing would be ghost stories. We were wrong. It was supposed to be a classic Halloween, just 4 friends, a tent, and a campfire deep in the woods behind my friend Tyler's house. We'd done it before, but this year, we wanted to push it further. No phones, no lights, no backup plan. Just us, the trees, and whatever we could carry on our backs. Tyler's family owned a stretch of land that backed up to the old state forest. The kind of place where the trees grow so thick you can't see the sky. People in town said the woods were haunted, but we laughed it off. We were 17, invincible, and desperate for a night that would make a good story. We set up camp as the sun dipped below the trees, the air turning sharp and cold. Tyler and I built the fire while Jess and Marcus argued over the best way to hang the food bag. The woods felt alive, branches creaking, leaves whispering secrets. But with the fire crackling and the smell of marshmallows in the air, it was easy to forget the warnings. "Anyone else hear about the witch's mark?" Jess asked, her face lit orange by the flames. Tyler rolled his eyes. "Here we go." "No, seriously," Jess insisted. "My grandma said there's a symbol out here. If you find it, you're supposed to leave." "Like, immediately." Marcus snorted. "Or what? The Blair Witch gets you." Jess glared at him. "Laugh all you want. People go missing out here." I tried to change the subject, but the stories kept coming. Hunters who vanished, campers who woke up with scratches they couldn't explain, a woman in white who wandered the trails at night. The fire made us brave, but every snap of a twig made my heart jump. Around midnight, the wind picked up. The fire sputtered, shadows dancing across the trees. That's when we heard it, a low, rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking on wood. We froze, listening. It stopped, then started again, closer this time. "Probably a deer," Tyler whispered, but his voice shook. "Or a serial killer," Marcus joked, but no one laughed. We tried to ignore it, but the tapping kept coming, circling our camp. Jess huddled closer to the fire. "I told you we shouldn't have come out here." "Relax," I said, forcing a smile. "It's just the wind." But then we saw it, a symbol carved into a tree just beyond the firelight. 3 interlocking circles, fresh and deep, sap still oozing from the bark. Jess gasped. "That's it, the witch's mark." Tyler grabbed a flashlight and shined it on the symbol. "Someone's messing with us." Marcus shook his head. "We didn't bring a knife." "Did you?" We all shook our heads. The tapping stopped. The woods went silent, too silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "We should go," Jess whispered. But Tyler was stubborn. "We're not letting some prank ruin our night." We tried to laugh it off, but the mood had shifted. The fire felt smaller, the darkness heavier. We crawled into the tent, zipped it tight, and tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that symbol burning in the dark. Sometime after 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps crunching leaves outside the tent. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps circled us, slow and deliberate. I reached for my flashlight, but it was dead. I nudged Tyler, but he was already awake, eyes wide with fear. Then came the whispering, soft, urgent, impossible to understand. It sounded like a dozen voices, all speaking at once. Jess whimpered, clutching my arm. Suddenly, the tent zipper jerked upward. We all screamed, scrambling back. The flap opened, and cold air rushed in. But no one was there. We bolted from the tent, hearts pounding. The fire was out, the woods pitch black. Marcus was gone. We called his name, our voices swallowed by the trees. No answer, just that suffocating silence. We searched for hours, stumbling through the underbrush, calling and calling. At dawn, we found his backpack at the base of the marked tree, the symbol now smeared with something dark. We ran all the way back to Tyler's house, not stopping until we burst through the door, gasping for breath. His parents called the police, but the search turned up nothing. No footprints, no sign of Marcus. Just that symbol, carved deeper than before. We left the woods, but something followed us home. For weeks, we heard tapping on our windows at night. Jess started sleepwalking, waking up with dirt under her nails. Tyler's dog refused to go near the tree line. I started seeing the symbol everywhere, scratched into my desk, drawn in condensation on my bathroom mirror. Then, one night, my phone rang. The caller ID was just static. I answered, and through the crackle, I heard Marcus's voice, faint and distant. "Don't come back," he whispered. "It's watching." The line went dead. But sometimes, the real horror is closer to home. They told us not to take candy from strangers. We should have listened. When you're a kid, Halloween is pure magic. The world feels bigger, the night feels endless, and every porch light is a promise. My friends and I lived for it, planning our costumes for weeks, mapping out the best houses, daring each other to go just a little farther than last year. But there was one house we always skipped, the old blue one at the end of Sycamore Street. The one with the peeling paint and the overgrown yard. The one where the candy man lived. Nobody knew his real name. Some said he'd been there forever, that he never aged. Others whispered that he only came out on Halloween, and the rest of the year, the house was empty. My mom would just shake her head and say, "Don't go near that place." I mean it. But that only made us more curious. Every year, someone would claim they saw him tall and thin, with a crooked smile and a bag of candy that never seemed to run out. The older kids said his candy was special. "It changes you," they'd say, eyes wide. "If you eat it, you'll never be the same." We all laughed, but deep down we wondered. That year, I was 9, and I wanted to prove I wasn't scared. My best friend, Jamie, was the ringleader. "Let's do it," he said, his vampire cape flapping in the wind. "Let's go to the Candyman's house." I hesitated. My mom said. Jamie rolled his eyes. "Your mom says a lot of things. Come on, don't be a baby." The rest of the group, Maya, dressed as a witch, and Ben, a robot, joined in. "Yeah, let's go. What's the worst that could happen?" We crept up the cracked walkway, our flashlights flickering. The porch was dark, but a faint glow seeped from behind the curtains. Jamie rang the bell. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened, just a crack. A man stood there, impossibly tall, his face hidden in shadow. "Trick or treat," Jamie said, his voice wavering. The man smiled a slow, crooked grin. "Wait here," he whispered. He disappeared inside, and we looked at each other, nerves jangling. When he returned, he held out a small, black box. "For the bravest," he said, eyes glinting. "But only one." Jamie snatched it, But the man's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Be careful what you wish for," he murmured, then let go. We ran, hearts pounding, not stopping until we reached the corner. Jamie opened the box. Inside were 4 candies, each wrapped in shiny, swirling paper. No brand, no label, just strange symbols drawn in silver ink. "Let's try one," Ben said, reaching in. Jamie hesitated, then handed one to each of us. "On 3, he said. 1, 2, 3. I unwrapped mine and popped it in my mouth. It tasted cold, then sweet, then sharp, like biting into a penny. My tongue tingled. The world seemed to tilt. For a second, I thought I was floating. Then it was over. I blinked, and everything looked off. The streetlights buzzed louder. The shadows seemed to move. Jamie's eyes glowed red for a split second, then faded. Maya's skin shimmered, almost translucent. Ben's voice sounded metallic when he spoke. "Did you feel that?" he asked, his words echoing. We all nodded, too scared to admit what we'd felt. The rest of the night was a blur. We finished trick-or-treating, but the candy tasted wrong, too sweet, too sticky. My stomach churned. When I got home, my mom frowned. "You look pale. Did you eat something weird?" I shook my head, but I could still taste the candy man's treat. That night, I dreamed of him standing at the foot of my bed, his eyes glowing, his mouth too wide. He whispered things I couldn't remember, but I woke up sweating, my heart racing. The next day at school, Jamie was different. He barely spoke, just stared at his hands. Maya's hair turned white overnight. Ben's skin looked gray, almost plastic. I tried to talk to them, but they avoided me. Days passed. The changes got worse. Jamie's teeth grew sharp. Maya's eyes turned black. Ben stopped coming to school altogether. I still had one piece of candy left. I tried to throw it away, but it always came back on my pillow, in my backpack, even in my pocket when I was sure I'd left it at home. One night, I looked in the mirror and saw my reflection smile before I did. My eyes flickered, just for a second, with a strange, silvery light. I'm afraid to eat the last piece. I'm afraid to throw it away. Sometimes, I hear the candy man's voice in my dreams, calling me back to that house at the end of Sycamore Street. They told us not to take candy from strangers. We should have listened. But the last story, that one almost cost me everything. You never know who's really behind the mask. I've always loved Halloween, even as an adult. Maybe it's the nostalgia, or maybe it's the excuse to let loose and be someone else for a night. Last year, I decided to go all out and host a party at my place, costumes mandatory, of course. I spent weeks planning. Fake cobwebs, flickering candles, a playlist of spooky classics, and enough snacks to feed a small army. The guest list was tight, just close friends, a few coworkers, and my sister, who never missed a chance to outdo everyone with her costumes. The night started perfectly. People arrived in waves, laughing and showing off their outfits. There was a vampire with fangs so realistic they made me flinch, a couple dressed as matching skeletons, and my sister as a disturbingly convincing porcelain doll. The house filled with music, chatter, and the smell of pumpkin spice. For a while, it felt like the best kind of chaos. But then, sometime after midnight, I noticed someone I didn't recognize. They wore a simple, featureless mask, white, with hollow eyes and a thin, painted smile. Their costume was nondescript. Black suit, black gloves, nothing flashy. At first, I assumed they were a friend's +1, but when I asked around, nobody claimed them. "Who's the mime?" I joked to my friend Alex, nodding toward the masked figure standing by the window. Alex frowned. "I thought they were with you." I shrugged it off. Parties attract strays, right? But as the night wore on, I kept catching glimpses of the masked guest. They never spoke, never ate or drank, just drifted from room to room, always on the edge of the crowd. Sometimes, I'd look up and find them staring at me, head tilted, as if waiting for something. The oddities started small. I'd walk into the kitchen and find a bowl of candy I didn't remember putting out. A song would play on the speakers that wasn't on my playlist. I'd overhear snippets of conversation, my friends talking about things that never happened, memories that didn't belong to any of us. "Remember that time we went to the lake?" my sister said, laughing. "You fell in and lost your shoe." I stared at her. "I've never been to a lake with you." She blinked, confused. "Of course you have. Don't you remember?" The masked guest drifted past, and for a moment, the room felt colder. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling grew. My friends' faces seemed to blur at the edges, their voices echoing strangely. I started to doubt my own memories. Had I really invited everyone here? Was this even my house? The walls seemed to shift when I wasn't looking, doors leading to rooms that shouldn't exist. At one point, I found myself alone in the hallway. The masked guest stood at the end, motionless. I forced a laugh. "Great costume. Who are you supposed to be?" They tilted their head, the painted smile stretching wider. "I'm whoever you want me to be," they whispered, their voice soft and echoing. I blinked, and they were gone. The party wound down around 2. People left in groups, waving and promising to text. My sister hugged me, her eyes distant. "Thanks for the party," she said. "Don't forget to lock up." I wandered through the empty house, picking up cups and plates, trying to shake the sense of unreality. When I reached the living room, I found the masked guest sitting alone on the couch. "I think it's time to go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They stood, gliding toward the door. As they passed, they leaned in close. "You invited me," they whispered. "You always do." The door closed behind them, and the house was silent. I barely slept that night. My dreams were filled with shifting faces, endless hallways, and the sound of laughter that wasn't mine. When I woke up, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Thanks for the party. See you next year." I tried to forget, but the messages kept coming. Sometimes just a single word "soon," sometimes a photo of my house, taken from the street. I changed my locks, deleted my social media, but it didn't matter. The masked guest always found a way back in. Sometimes, I think they're watching you too. Maybe you've seen them at a party, standing just out of sight. Maybe you felt that chill, that sense that something isn't quite right. Last night, I found the mask on my kitchen table. I live alone. I locked every door and window. But there it was, waiting for me, the painted smile wider than ever. There's one last thing you need to know. So, here we are back in the quiet after the storm, or at least, that's what we tell ourselves. Maybe you're sitting in your room, lights on, trying to convince yourself these are just stories. Maybe you're scrolling through the comments, looking for someone who had it worse, or someone who can explain away the things you've felt crawling at the edge of your own Halloween nights. But if you've made it this far, you know better. You know that sometimes the mask doesn't come off, the party never ends, the woods are never truly empty, and the candy never really leaves you. I see your theories, your warnings, your desperate attempts to connect the dots. Some of you noticed the symbols in the woods match the ones on the Candyman's wrappers. Others caught the way the masked visitor and the uninvited guest both left something behind, something that doesn't belong in our world. You're not wrong. There are patterns here, threads that tie these stories together, even if I can't or won't spell them out. Some details I can't share here, not because I don't want to, but because I'm not sure what would happen if I did. There are rules, even for me. And if you've experienced something similar, if you've ever woken up with a memory that doesn't fit, or found something in your house that shouldn't be there, or heard your name whispered from the shadows on Halloween night, you're not alone. You're part of something bigger, something older than any of us. Maybe you've already left your own mark in the comments, or maybe you're still working up the courage. Either way, I'm listening. We all are. There are more stories, of course. Some too dangerous to tell, some that even I haven't pieced together yet. I get messages every year, photos, recordings, frantic emails from people who swear they've seen the same mask, heard the same voice, tasted the same candy. Some of those stories end up here. Some don't. Maybe you'll be the next one to send me something I can't explain. Maybe you already have. So, tell me, which story haunted you the most? Was it the silent visitor at your door, the party that shouldn't exist, the woods that watch and remember, the candy that changes you, or the guest who never really leaves? Or was it something else, something you've never told anyone, because you're afraid no one would believe you? Share your own Halloween horror in the comments. Maybe next time, I'll tell your story. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll realize you're already living it. And if you're still feeling brave, if you're still convinced it's all just make-believe, I'll leave you with one last warning. If you hear a knock at midnight tonight, don't answer. If you find a mask on your porch, or a piece of candy that wasn't there before, or a party invitation with no sender, remember what you heard here. Some stories are still being written. Some doors, once opened, never really close. Happy Halloween, if you survive the night.